Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Multifamily Investor Nation podcast. My name is Andrew Davis. I am filling in for Dan Hanford today. I'm the Director of Investor Relations for PassiveInvesting.com. And today I'm very excited to have Greg Woods and Art Griffin of Task Force Equity to talk about their recent acquisition in Galveston, Texas. And so before we dive into the details of this deal, guys, tell me a little bit about yourselves, kind of your background, what you've been doing in the multifamily space recently.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew and Dan Hanford. You guys are the best. Thanks for having us on your show. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to talking about this asset and our team. So my name's Greg Woods. I'm a naval engineer, also a professional engineer licensed. So is Art Griffin. And we worked as a team together with U.S. Navy out in the Pacific on the island of Guam, about 6 of us. And we just had an amazing repertoire, a lot of trust between the team, members in the Navy, running operations across about 34 different countries. And so, when you have that kind of relationship, you look to continue that in whatever fashion you can. And so a lot of us, when we weren't running missions, we're talking real estate and our single family holdings. And when we all departed and went our different ways, we looked for something that we could continue to do together. And through some podcasts, Dan Hanford's Multifamily Investor Nation and Rod Khalif, we went to a couple of conferences and got jazzed and excited, put the team together, and our opportunity and being ready, the opportunities presented itself, and here we are today. So really excited to talk about the asset. Over to you, Art.
Yeah, I second everything Greg said. Greg started off a little bit more into it than I did. I was on the side already I already made a pitch to a primary investor for a fourplex, ended up falling through. But I think I earned a lot of trust with some of my engineering background there that kind of led into this deal, which made a nice connection when Greg approached me about joining Task Force Equity. So naval engineer, was part of the team out in Guam that connected with Greg, and we just kept in contact ever since.
Excellent. Well, first of all, thank you for your service. And second of all, I think I probably have the distinction of being somebody not in active duty military that has spent time in Guam. So
awesome.
I've actually been there. I won't bore you with the details, but I've been there. It's really quite literally in the middle of nowhere. So, man, thank you guys so much for both of you for your service. Love how you connected. And let's dive into this deal. So, 71st Street Apartments, Class C, sounds like a value add deal in the Galveston, Texas market. First of all, tell me, how did you find and source this deal?
So really, Andrew, it comes down to networking, being prepared and just continuing to talk to people. So I talked to you about some of your guests you had on the show. I reached out to several of the past guests and just started networking. So eager to share their stories. And so that led us to a mastermind group that I joined and found this deal through the mastermind, and can't say enough. We were already preparing pitch decks and underwriting a lot of different properties. And so, one takeaway, be ready, because we were pitching things, not really anticipating a yes. We presented to a lead investor this property in Galveston, Texas, at about a 7.5 cap, and it had a strong net operating income. And the lead investor said, yeah, let's do it. So at that point, Art and I had to rapidly prepare and close this deal within a couple months. It came together very rapidly, Andrew.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. And then tell me, in terms of the deal profile, what was the purchase price?
So the deal was originally marketed at about $2.85 million for a 36 unit. So, just about maybe 75, 80K a door. It fell through. It was a wholesale deal, and it fell through. They had an appraisal that had already been ordered and in hand at $2.45 million. So naturally, we worked with the seller, the wholesaler, and said, we'll pay no more than the appraisal, because that's where we can get lending at. And so we ended up at $2.45 million a door, which is about 68K, $2.45 million, 68K a door.
Okay. Now, what do you have? Tell me a little bit about the value add plan, and then what was kind of your overall equity with, or overall, I should say, capital stack, debt, and equity for, to bring this deal together.
Okay. So we did this as a joint venture. First of all, we didn't do a syndication. We found one lead investor who was interested. And so our debt to equity is about 75% LTV. The unique aspect was we had to close this thing rapidly. So we actually did a bridge loan, kind of a hard money loan at an unfavorable interest rate to get into the property, with the idea that we were going to have to refinance this property within 6 to 9 months. So we went in knowing that, and our lead sponsor put down about 20-25%. Art and I both kicked in a small amount as well to have some skin in the game. But it was basically a 75% LTV.
Okay. And how did you find the lead sponsor? Was that one of your masterminds, or how did you connect with this individual?
Over to you, Art.
Yeah, so this is a person that I knew through family connections. We always talked about different investments. Like I said, I approached him on my own before even joining any mastermind groups about going in on a fourplex, and we were completely in. We did our inspections, and when I was calling through the property, there were some big red flags, other issues, and I recommended that we pass on it. And I think he really appreciated the frankness, even though I really wanted the property, about and I think that gave us a lot of credence when I approached him on a bigger deal, which was 36. I was actually surprised that after we pitched it, he went for it immediately. So I think building the credibility with people that are interested in your work and understand your reputation.
Yeah, I want to highlight that, because I think that's so important, especially when you're starting out. And I think a lot of our listeners are starting out or aspiring multifamily investors. It's easy to just really want to get that first deal done. And I think you demonstrating integrity and saying, you know what, I think, well, let's not on this one. That I'm sure that went a long way. That happened to me early on as well. I had an investor that was all in on a small deal I was raising capital for, and I went back to him and I just said, hey, you know what? I've dove into this further, really want to work with you, but this is not going to be the right one. So I think that sounds like that went a long way and set you guys up well for this deal. Now, how did you structure his joint venture piece? Kind of what is the structure of the deal look like? I know it's not a typical syndication, but walk me through the equity structure.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had listened to a lot of podcasts. We were familiar with kind of a pref and then a split thereafter. And so we just approached him with a simplistic, hey, we'll pay a 6% pref before any other funds come out of this deal on your invested capital. Anything beyond that, we're going to do an 80-20 split, Art and I being the 20% for our sweat equity. So it was a simple 6%, 80-20 split. Okay,
6%, 80-20 split. I got it. And tell me, I imagine you all in this market, we certainly are, underwrote and looked at a lot of deals. Why this one? What really made you say, hey, we want to? And then kind of a follow up or maybe a preliminary question to that: is this your first deal of this size, or your first deal? Tell me kind of what this represents in terms of your acquisitions.
Definitely our first deal as Task Force Equity.
Yep.
We all had experience with single family, as many people do. Our lead sponsor had experience in the restaurant business and with commercial real estate, but none of us had dove into multifamily specifically. This property we underwrote at about a 6.5 cap, and it was being offered at a 7.5 cap. And so instantly, it met a lot of our criteria, to include like the 1% rule. So the going in rents were about $950 versus, $68K a door. So this property had a lot of meat on the bones.
Yeah.
There were some particularities. It's an all bills paid property, which is kind of a double-edged sword. Obviously, the expense ratio is going to be higher, but it keeps the place occupied. It's a very popular property. We're at 100% occupancy now, and we have never dipped below 95%. Okay.
When you say an all bills paid property, tell the listeners what that means.
Sure. So it sounds like a good deal for the tenants, and it actually is. We pay for tenant water, trash, and electric.
Okay.
And Art, am I missing any there? I think that's it.
No,
And
that's
gas
Yep,
as well, I believe. And there are some nuances there, obviously, conservation and making sure, people are, closing their doors when they've got the AC running. I mean, it's a challenge. And so we are looking at doing some things like there's a couple companies out of Houston that do Save Water Company, Save Watts Company, where they will come in and do an audit. We're in the process of doing that, beefing up the exterior with insulation, et cetera. There's things you can do, but, bottom line is it does present an appealing structure for a tenant. So it's a good way to keep the occupancy high. Over.
I will say we looked at a first moving it over to a RUB system, or maybe getting a quick investment to make it so we can have each of the tenants have their own metering system, because that was one issue with the property when we took it over. And we determined just do quick business case analysis that it wasn't in our favor. We went a different direction with our business case with the property. It worked out better with our demographic and what we were trying to do for the refinance.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And then if you know it, you mentioned higher expense ratios. What is an expense ratio or the expense ratio on this asset? Being older, I think you mentioned some of the tenants are potentially Section 8 or kind of income assisted tenants. And then as a proportion in terms of, because you're paying all the utility bills, kind of what does that make up in terms of the expense ratio? If you know those numbers, they don't have to be specific. I'm curious.
No, we do. We just refinanced the property. And so we had to go through all this. We were running about a 56 to 60% expense ratio. Okay. Our goal and our business model has us trying to cut that down to about 50%, but we've been okay at the current levels.
And that's including the utilities for the tenants.
Yes, Andrew, it is.
Well, that's pretty darn good for an older asset. That's great. Okay, very good. So lots of upside. Tell me a little bit about, I know that probably these first few months here have been kind of figuring out how to optimize, or stabilize expenses, obviously getting out of that higher interest bridge debt into something. Did you refinance into fixed rate? And tell me a little bit about the refinance process. How long did that take? What came up? And then what kind of terms did you get on the longer term loan?
Sure. So our original financing was like I said, 75% LTV. It was a 9-month term. And the interest rate was 7.5%. And I cringe when I say that. That presented some cash flow challenges. Yeah. And we closed. And that presented some cash flow challenges in the first several months. Our broker that got us into that deal promised he'd have us out of it in 3 months. I won't go into a lot of details there, but we didn't end up using that broker. So we ended up, the process took 9 months exactly. In fact, we closed on April 1st. 1 day after the 9-month term, didn't present any problems. Our final financing that we refinanced into was also a 75% LTV, but it was 10 years fixed, interest only at 4.8% for 10 years. Okay. What's so it's IO, so there's no amortization. You're fixed. Right. No amortization. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 prepay. So there's a prepayment penalty, but with that refinance, we're able to shave about $3,000 a month off our capital debt servicing. Excellent. And your joint venture partner, did you refi him out, or is he staying in the deal? Same equity. He's going to be in the deal long term for you guys. He's in the deal long term. He's looking forward to those cash flows down the road. Okay, excellent. So tell me a little bit about you found this asset. You laid out the upside. Obviously, your basis is very strong, especially relative to a lot of things you're trading for at 68K a door, I think you said. That's fantastic. So a lot of upside. Tell me, as you were going through due diligence, how much hard money did you have to put up? Did anything come up during due diligence that either was of concern to you, or that you were like, oh my gosh, there's even more value here than we anticipated? Tell me about that process. Yeah, I'm going to let Art chime in there, because he did a lot of work in that due diligence period. I will say there was no real hard money. We signed a contract, we visited the property, and then we did have to put $40K down after we had visited the property and when we were ready to move forward. So about 2% of the purchase price. But Art, there's some experiences there with that due diligence period. Over to you, buddy.
Yeah. So I was the one that basically was the final say on the property. I flew down there for the earnest money, and I walked the property in detail and crawled under the crawl space and everything. And there were some issues, and we knew what we were getting into. We knew we had some apartments had some subfloor issues. We knew we had some leaking, some issues with leaks. We knew we had some just general upkeep issues across the board. Numerous HVACs were down, they were replaced with window shakers. So we had a lot of problems. The pool was green, when we took it over. So you could almost list all the issues. And, I kind of went over my head, kind of calculated like some of these costs. I mean, our engineering background really helped. And we've seen a lot of problems in our work with just facility maintenance. So I think that none of these were unsurmountable. There were no major red flags. And, I think that just came with the price of the property. And this was something that we knew we could work on, and we thought we could cash flow it. And I think that was maybe one of our biggest missteps earlier on. We didn't request from our primary investor like a CapEx budget to initially go in with. We thought we could cash flow the issues, which turned out to be not right, because we had to go back to our primary investor for capital call.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, after I did my inspections, my due diligence, and said, hey, I think we should go forward with it. We did. Yeah. And to this day, I think we made the right call, even though we had some major headaches.
Sure. And then, all right, we talked about that. Yeah, tell me a little bit about it sounds like you've definitely had some issues that arose that you're aware of. Kind of what have you done in the first 9 months, if anything, in terms of CapEx value add? What do you have slated, and what's the long-term plan for this asset?
Yeah, so we're reworking our business model right now for exactly how much value add we're going to do, whether or not we're going to try to move the property up. We think that we're going to probably stick status quo, maintain our current business plan of do light value adds, LTV flooring, change up some of the appliances, do some fixtures within the apartments, make them a little better class C, C plus, however you want to say it. Yeah. And make it more appealing, curb appeal, fix major issues. So we had some leaks in the pool. We changed out some of the HVAC units. We fixed subfloor issues, so we had to pull up a lot of rotting floors. We had a hoarder that we ended up having to evict. And I will say, we took over the property with a property manager on site. So that was a big turning decision point for us, whether or not we outsource the property management or we do it internally to ourselves. We wanted to keep her. We thought she had a lot of experience in the market. And we said, okay, me and my wife, we already had a property management company. So we just hired her on and we worked remotely through her as our primary point of contact. And then we hired the same maintenance person that worked there. We hired them as a contractor to run the issues and worked him into a system with the property manager. And the process worked. It was clunky at first, but we smoothed it out.
Very good. Excellent. And in terms of renovations per door, cost per door, in terms of those renovations, and then what kind of premium you think you'll achieve, what are the numbers there?
Yeah, so we've actually increased the average rents from $950 when we took over the property to $1050 now, and that obviously went a long ways in the current appraisal and the refinance. We increased the valuation to $3.15 million, came in at a 6.5 cap. We are continuing to put about $4 to $5K per door and see about a 10 to 15% increase in the valuation. Although, one unique aspect of this property being about half Section 8 is that a lot of times building that relationship with the housing authority allows you a better dialogue. And we found that improved dialogue we were able to request increased rents at about 15 to 20%. And we were granted those increases in rents without even doing the value add. And so we've achieved about 30% of the units we've now renovated. And we will continue down that path. But a lot of the times with the Section 8 tenants, it's just a matter of dialogue with the housing authority. Anything to add, Art?
No, I think that was spot on. I will say that, there's a lot of talk in the multifamily world about low C properties. Avoid them, they're headaches. I would say with the right team in place, you can make it work and even bring it to your benefit, where working with the housing authorities can be a positive interaction. Those inspections are a double-edged sword, right? People think that it's mostly against the owner, but it also helps us with evictions. It helps us with standing with people on housing authority, so they have to be good stewards, or they get reported. And if you can work the paperwork and you understand the flow, it can be very beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, look, the proof is in the pudding, right? If you look at the per door prices and what y'all are able to do, it's certainly not without its challenges, but there's some expression about that the greater problems you solve, the more compensated you are. And so I think to your point, with active management, where you're really running that process and you're not handing that over, at least until you really have your systems and processes buttoned up. I mean, it sounds like you guys have found a tremendous asset and have done some incredible things and probably will continue to.
I will say one thing.
Yeah, Andrew, I want to make one comment.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead.
So I was going to say, sorry, Art, go ahead.
I will say that the one thing that became interesting for us was the Texas Rent Relief Program, where we had a lot of tenants start applying for it right after COVID and after the moratorium was ended. And that caused a lot of cash flow problems for us, with a lot of tenants that would be in the system for getting relief, but we're not getting rent in. So it's getting processed. That took a lot of months of revenue away from us, where it's being processed by Texas Rent Relief, and then suddenly we'll get a check for it. Or maybe they didn't get support from Texas Rent Relief, then we have to evict them. So it became a very difficult problem towards the end of Texas Rent Relief.
Okay. And Greg, you had a comment?
Yeah, I was going to say that by taking on the management ourselves, which you hear a lot of times that's a bad idea.
Yeah,
we were able with this smaller property to learn so much through the process. And I feel more comfortable as moving forward, outsourcing to third party, because I know what to expect. And we've been through this ourselves. And so there is a lot of value in that process, even if you're not perfect at it. Growing and learning that process has value in and of itself.
Yeah.
You bet. All right. For the final famous 2 questions of the MFIN podcast, what was something that you thought would be really challenging in this deal that didn't actually turn out to be that difficult?
Go for it, Art.
Yeah. So I would say getting started. I think that and taking action. There's so much support out there. Tons of people willing to share their thoughts on how they got started or what to do. You can almost ask anybody, and there'll be a fountain of knowledge. For us, it was do the networking, the pitching. That's all simple. I think the hardest part is actually writing that first LOI and then moving, and then keep on making decisions that quickly but effectively. And if you can do that, you can succeed.
Fantastic. And conversely, what was something that you thought would be easy that turned out to be a little bit more challenging?
Well, I know what Art's going to say, so I'll answer it for him. But when you take over a property, you own it. You own all of it, and you have to take action, and you have to solve problems. And especially if you take on that in-house property management role. We were very fortunate, as Art mentioned, we brought the on-site and the maintenance manager over. They had a lot of wealth of experience, but we've been through some challenges. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had a natural gas leak, and the county shut down our natural gas. Now people don't have domestic hot water for showers. That's a big deal. People are looking to us for answers. So Art, talk through that scenario and how you solved it.
Yeah, so immediately we had emergency trouble calls routed through our maintenance person, and we immediately contracted a company to come out there and start doing the work while giving all the notifications to the tenants that are out there. And in a day, we turned it around. We got the gas back on, and we fixed, I think it was like 7 leaks, and then we got everything back into compliance because we had to get everything back into compliance before the county would turn it back on. So we had a lot of issues we didn't even know we had, and we fixed those because of the county. So you're learning every day.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very good.
And Dan always says, you don't dabble in this business, right? You don't just try it. You're in. And I think we've realized that we are continuing to improve. We're looking to refine our processes so that when we take the next step, we're better operators. We've learned from our mistakes, and we can continue to make our investors money.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, Greg, Art, really, really good to have you on the podcast today. It's been good getting to know you guys and you over the last, I guess, year or so. Congratulations on this deal. And if listeners want to find out more about you, where can they follow your progress and potentially even invest with you on future deals?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Andrew. So we're Task Force Equity. That's there's 2 E's in there, forceequity.com. And you can reach us at taskforceequity@gmail.com. And ultimately, we want to continue down the path, whether that's another joint venture or a 506B. My goal is that we've refined ourselves as operators to the point where we're bringing in some of our military friends and families to invest alongside us safely and securely and confidently. So taskforceequity.com. Check us out.
Very good. Very good. Well, thank you again. We'll wrap it up and look forward to connecting with you guys soon. Have a great day.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Andrew.
it. Thank you.